In this video, we are going to learn how to do the hand sewing stitch, the slip stitch. For this, all you will need is a single threaded needle, your fabric, scissors, and pins. Now I have already folded my sample piece of fabric like I did before to simulate a hem. So I just folded it in half, pressed that, and then opened it, folded that to the middle, and pressed it down like this. So this simulates a hem. The slip stitch, also known as it's occasionally known as the ladder stitch or the invisible stitch or tunnel stitch. It has several names. This is a really great stitch for hems. It's not the best stitch for hems, but it is a really great one. So here's how we do the slip stitch. So the slip stitch is meant to be mostly invisible. So I'm going to start by hiding my knot in this fold over here. Okay, pull this through just like that. Let me get this out of the way. So now what I want to do, now that I've hidden my knot, actually, before I do that, let me pin my layers together so that they don't move. And this time I'm going to put my pins going the same direction as my folded line, or my hem. I may call it a hem. So now what I want to do is I want to take a little tiny stitch, not on the fold, but exactly next to the fold. Little tiny stitch. See how little that is? I have not caught that fold. If I lay this flat together, I'm right next to it. Pull that through. This is why this is known as the invisible stitch, because you take very tiny stitches. So now the next stitch I'm going to do is actually on this fold line. I'm going to go down just a little bit. So this is where my thread's coming out. I'm going down just a little bit from there, going into that crease and back out. So my needle's right on that crease edge. Okay, pull that. So now from here to here, there's a little tiny diagonal stitch. So I'm going to go down just a tiny bit and take an itty bitty stitch right there, not in the fold, right beside the fold. So this is a single layer fabric and this is multiple layers. So in the single layer fabric, you want to take little tiny stitches. But in the folded edge, you can take slightly longer stitches. That's totally fine. It's one of the reasons people call it a tunnel stitch is because it's kind of like you're putting your needle and thread through a tunnel. I'm going to go right into that fold. Oop, thread's getting caught on things. Hold on. There we go. Okay. And take an itty bitty stitch right beside the fold. Go into the fold. Come out of the fold. And the stitches I'm taking in my fold are a bit longer than the ones I'm taking in my single layer. Itty bitty stitch in the single layer. Go in that crease and back out that crease with a slightly longer stitch. And itty bitty stitch. Now, if you have trouble getting right in this crease, that's okay. It just takes time and practice to get right on the edge of that crease. You just don't want to like come way out here. And when you're taking the stitch, you are only in the fold. Those stitches, that's a pin. That's not my needle. My needle's down here. This stitch does not catch the single layer when you're going in that crease. See that? It's just the crease, just the fold. Okay, pull that. And then this side, I'm not catching the crease at all. Okay, so I'm kind of slipping my thread through the crease. Maybe that's why it's called the slip stitch. I honestly have never thought why it's called the slip stitch. This is probably why. It's because you're slipping your thread through the crease. When you are using the stitch, you do basically the same thing for a ladder stitch. There's a slight minute difference between this and a ladder stitch. But on a ladder stitch, you're doing this tunnel between two different layers to sew up a hole in like a stuffy or something. So it's the same motion, but you're only doing half the step. So you're doing a tunnel on both sides for a ladder stitch. But we don't often have to slip stitch something like that closed. In theater, we don't usually have holes like that. We usually just stitch it in a different way. But I don't know. Depends on the draper. That may be how they want you to finish it. But this is how we do this for hems. I'm trying my best, y'all. It is a little late at night when I'm recording this video, and I can already tell I'm starting to get loopy. All right, so I am here at the end. So I'm going to take one more stitch in the single side. Nope, I lied. I want to take one more stitch in my folded edge because I don't want my folded edge to open up. Okay, there we go. Whoop. And now I'm going to tie my knot on the folded edge. And then we'll take a closer look at this stitch to see what it looks like when it's all said and done. Okay. Okay, so up close, little tiny stitches. It's going from the single layer into the folded edge. This is the wrong side, and on the right side, you have these little tiny stitches. If I were actually doing this on a hem, on a garment, I would actually make these stitches even smaller. But this is a pretty decent size because on stage, woo, 30 feet away, no one's going to be able to tell that those are there. But this is why this is called the invisible stitch, is because on the right side, there's little tiny pieces and it's a pretty strong hem. It's not the strongest because see how there I can actually get into here and get my finger underneath that fold. That's why this isn't one of the strongest hems, but it is a really excellent one if you need to hem something like the bottom of a pair of pants and you need it to be mostly invisible with a hand stitch. So that's the slip stitch.